Welcome to the Life in Flow podcast.
The three of us, Yulia, Polina, and Irina, are exploring what life in flow and flow in life is.
Join us as we experiment, test our diverse hypotheses, and have fun in the process.
Will we find an answer?
This isn't just an intellectual discussion. We're co-creating a shared field beyond words. We're attuning to what emerges moment by moment, so that the conversation itself becomes a group flow experience.
And we invite you to become an active participant in this experiment. There will be pauses and moments of silence. We leave them on purpose because this is where magic happens.
Go beyond the intellectual information. Listen with your whole body and notice how your somatic experience shifts in the process. Share with us what reveals itself in the space where mind, body, and energy flow together.
Welcome to this new episode of Life and Flow podcast. Here we are again, Polina, Yulia, and Irina. And I, Irina, will be steering the flow today. And today we will be discussing the difference between life in flow and flow in life. A little bit background for our listeners. You might have noticed that in our introduction to the podcast, we say that we are exploring what life in flow and flow in life is. And while we were working on the launch of the project, we actually discussed a lot whether we want to state just that we're exploring what life in flow is, or whether we want to leave both terms, life in flow and flow in life. And we felt that for us, it is important to emphasize the distinction between the two, and that this distinction is significant somehow. So today, we want to explore what is this difference? What is it about? And as usual, we will start our discussion with a little game that will help us to enter this group flow and become aware of what is emerging at every moment. So I will remind each of us, for the three of us, the rules of the game, but I also will explain to the listeners what the game consists of, because we want you not just to listen passively to what we are saying, but also try to play with us. So I will say a word, which I will pronounce in several minutes. And let us share some stories that come to each of us in association with the word. When each of us shares a story, let's focus on the specific detail or details of your sensorial experience. And while we are listening to the stories of the others, let's also focus on the somatic experience, that what emerges for each of us in the body, through the body, in resonance to what we're hearing. So when the next one is sharing her story, we may just share what we have experienced somatically while we were listening to the previous story, or we can share the new story, what comes to us in resonance to what we have heard. And I think we will try to do a couple of rounds, but let's see how we go with time. And also, I think we will not define the order. Let's see if we can, how can we flow, just trying to feel when it is turn to speak for each of us. And to the listeners, the invitation is also focus on your somatic experience while you listen to each story and see what comes to your mind as the response to the somatic experience. And if you want to, or you may share your stories that come to you in association with all this shared experience later in the comments, wherever you will be listening this episode. Okay, so are we ready for the what? Now, I have several words prepared. Now let me tune in to the field to feel what is the word that wants to be played with. Okay, I think we will go with synchronicity. Who wants to start?
Well, I have a story that's about the first episode, conscious episode of Synchronicity. I'm just going to tell the story. I don't know yet how it's related to flow. Well, it is related to flow. But anyway, it happened after a Psilocybin magic mushroom ceremony that I had for the first time in the Netherlands around 5 years ago, I think. So I was in I guess I was in a very special and very sensitive state where I was making so many discoveries about things that were always there, but I was had been filtering them out, I guess. And one of the things that happened is that when I came home, I felt an impulse to write a message to someone who I hadn't seen for a long, long time. And she lives in the States. So I wrote a message to her, and the next thing I know, she's writing me back, and she says that she's in Moscow and her husband passed, and that she's not seeing anyone, but she really would love it if I were to come and visit her outside of Moscow. That was such a wow experience to me. It's like, wow, this was totally orchestrated. I had not been writing to her for a long time. Neither did she. And then here we are, finally together. And yeah, so that was it gave me a very good taste of what synchronicity is. And at that point, I didn't really concern myself much with flow, or I guess flow was not a word that I would use. Yeah, but I mean, in the retrospect, there was flow because I felt an impulse, I followed it, and then there was a response that was waiting kind of to happen.
Yeah. But we will see what flow has to do with all of this, if it has to anything. But just a clarification. So you were in Moscow at that moment?
I came back from the Netherlands to Moscow. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I had a funny reaction to your story. So when you said this word that I'm not able to pronounce, the mushroom word.
Psilocybin.
That one. Psilocybin, okay. So I had this feeling of like like this altered state of consciousness just was passing through me. It was very interesting. And then at a certain point, actually, I already don't remember what you were saying, but I had this sensation of, like when you know that something, when this mystical coincidence happens to you and you feel it in the body, like, how they call it, I don't remember. So like I have this experience throughout your story. It was a very curious reaction.
I also had that happen when you said that she responded and that her husband died. That at that point it was like like this whole energetic thing, like with quite some. It wasn't like a soft, thin energetic resonance to it. There was like weight to it, and it like went all the way down. And so is that what you were describing, Ir? Because it really was like all of my
it's
turned on, and it was like, yeah.
It has the word, but I don't know what is the word, and well, like I know the word, but I just don't. It doesn't come to my mind at this moment.
Yeah. But I also I had a reaction. There was some kind of like sense of recognition when you said there was an impulse and then there was a reaction in the field, and that it was orchestrated, but so interesting that if you had not done psilocybin, I don't know if you would have been open enough to receive that impulse from the field, right? And then reach out and maybe I wonder if the openness or whatever, I don't know what your experience was after psilocybin, but something about that experience kind of opened you up, and the field was able to kind of have this kind of interactive thing with you, right? That was cool. And that it does bring up the question for me, okay, is flow about impulse with the reaction? That's part of, like, I think the mechanism. So yeah, cool.
We will go back to the questions just in several minutes. Don't worry. So far, let's focus on the stories. What comes to me when I think about synchronicity, and it's somewhat similar to the experience Yulia shared. It's not like one specific case, but just it happens quite often when I'm thinking about like a question that I really need to answer, or something worries me, or like I have a doubt. Like I have some sort of this existential question I need to resolve, or there is something inside me that needs to be actualized. So all of a sudden, I start seeing like the signs everywhere related to this question. Like I open the book and I read like a stupid fantasy book and really a stupid story. Like the characters are talking about this topic. And in Instagram and all social media, all of a sudden, like the videos are popping up regarding this topic, and you hear the conversation, and someone says something that like somehow is related to it, and it provokes in me like an overall reaction of being in awe with all of this interconnectedness, like how it all is coming together.
Yeah, I love that you said, go ahead, Yul.
No, go ahead.
I love that you mentioned the word interconnectedness. And also, as I was tuning into how you were describing your experience of synchronicity, I was considering, okay, so it's both that my field and my brain is primed for a certain type of pattern recognition, but also it's the availability of that thing that I need or want to recognize is actually available in the field. And so how does that happen? Does it happen synchronistically, or is it always available in the field? And it's just a matter of us like being able to be tuned in, or like for us to be open to the field in ways that we can pick up what we need in that moment, but also the interconnectedness of that mechanism, not just with people, but like that mechanism of us and the field and the things that can come together. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Another story came to mind that's very recent. And so, as kind of Pauline, you're saying that this is one of the aspects is certainly filtering. And because when we give our focus to something, then like we're more likely to recognize something, be it a pattern or maybe be it a plant, because my story is about the plant. And I've had this kind of an obsession with a plant, with a tree that's called elder tree. And elder tree, I'm going to say in Russians, buzina, in case girls don't know the tree. But actually, it's kind of a sacred tree in the Germanic history. It's called Mother Elder. And I was in the winter, I was already imagining how, oh my God, I'm going to collect some blossoms of the elder tree and then the berries and do this and that with them. But where am I going to find them? It's probably very far from me. Okay, I need the places. And then like, one of the points of our walk with that girl was actually to look for elder trees. And then it's like we found them at this field at the airport, and I was so happy. But they're not blooming yet. And I come home, and the next morning I'm going to this playground that's like 100 meters from our house, and like there are a lot of plants there, not only playground. I walk and I walk, like, oh shoot, elderberry. Oh shit, another one, elder tree, another elder. What? I had been living here for 3 years and I was not able to see those trees. And it's like, okay, it's not really a synchronicity, but into your point of is it always in the field? I think probably most of it is already in the field. But of course, we cannot overwhelm ourselves by sensing lots of things or by focusing on lots of things, right? So it's like, where do we put that filter, right? And how do we put that filter? Anyway,
Wait, can I add to your story? It's the other side of what you're describing. So I actually went to a networking event and I made a connection with someone that I wasn't like, I'm never sure anymore about what is supposed to happen or like what I just go with it. But after the event, I just happened to walk down the street randomly and I ran into her. And okay. And then a week later, I was at a restaurant, totally in a different town, completely random, total random timing on when I decided to be leaving the restaurant. And exactly at that moment, I meet her in the exit again. And it's like, okay, so clearly the field, something in the field is because I could have, if I was just a minute later that I left the restaurant, I wouldn't have run into her. So it was like the field, for some reason, it was available in the field, but also it couldn't have always been available in the field because it literally required us physically to be in the space together. And something in the field wanted us to actually really come together in that moment. So that's a synchronicity. That is an example of the pattern recognition being open, right? But it's also an example of something being available in the field in that specific moment, in that location, that just could not, like it wasn't like a random thing. So yeah, it's really interesting, all these different elements that come to play.
So I
now in any kind of contact, or
What?
are you now in some kind of
Yeah.
contact?
Yeah, and I'm staying in the flow of seeing, okay, like, what is this about? Because clearly something's here. Okay, yeah.
I want you to hold to this photo reflection. So, like, is it always in the field, or are we conjuring it up by paying attention? Like, how does this interaction with the field happen? Because I think it will emerge later on in our discussion, and for sure we will find this question: how is it related to the flow, or maybe not? We will see. Definitely, some questions has arisen now during this sharing that will require more and more episodes, as always, with this such a complex topic. So, but for now, before we move on to the proper discussion, and I warn you, I actually have a lot of questions. Definitely will not be able to discuss all of them, but we will see like what comes up. So, like, before we move on to the discussion, let us just take a moment to become aware of how we are at this moment. So what is coming up for you now? How are you feeling in terms of connection and openness and flow? Everything is good? Does anyone needs to be shared? I'm good to go. Okay. Well, so I want us to go directly to the question, directly to the topic. But before we dive in, I want to do a little recap of what we discussed regarding our personal views on what flow is in the previous episode, or more specifically when we did the first episode for the podcast. We actually discussed how each of us is seeing what flow is. And so I describe flow as being one with the experience, and even in certain point I called it dancing with the experience. I like this metaphor very much. We also talked about that flow state is a certain type of the trance state. Also, we can call it an altered state of consciousness, in terms of that it's different from our normal, like, state of consciousness of our ordinary mode of the problem solving. Yulia described flow primarily as navigating interconnectedness, and I also love this description very much. And her main marker is the feeling of gratitude. So she said that if she feels gratitude, she knows that the flow is there. And Paulina, and now I will need to navigate through interconnectedness of my notes. So it is interacting with energies within her and around her from the sense of trust in herself, in the energies, in the flow of life. And today, I hope we will discuss what flow of life means, or maybe not. And is this interacting happens from her being in her whole mind, as opposed to just being in her head. And this being allows her to hold different perspectives in this space of interacting with energies. So this is how we defined flow. itself. And now my question to you is, okay, if this is flow, what life in flow means to you? So I don't want us to focus right now on the differences specifically between these two terms, the life and flow and life. Let's focus first on life and flow. So how do you define and describe to yourself at this moment what life and flow is?
I think for me, if I were to talk about one thing, and that is when you have to do something difficult, something that's not fun, maybe something that's not boring, maybe something that's not at all my idea of my strong points, or maybe I hate some of the tasks that I do need to do, especially at this very moment. It's just like not having a doubt about you doing them. It always used to be, like, for me, that really important things, I would put them off because they're difficult, they're challenging, and maybe they're uncomfortable. And okay, I guess my stakes were not very high. I don't do it. It doesn't work out. Okay, I can live with that. So now I get this sense that actually the uncomfortableness of these things, it has gone down, or how challenging they seem. So it's I don't know. It's maybe I'm actually sounding somewhat incoherent, but yeah, I think it's, for me, the flow in life is tested in difficult moments, be it when you are doing something really not fun, or maybe when you're going through a challenging phase, and knowing still in like a bottom, let's say, that this is all worth it.
So may I ask some clarifying questions? The key factor here is that there is a challenge, or the key factor is that you don't have a doubt that you need to deal with this challenge?
I mean, life is a challenge, right? So couldn't deal without them. It's knowing that it's all worth it.
Okay, so it's really like more the feeling of, even if it's the challenge, I know that I need to be in this experience. Do I understand it right?
Say it again.
I mean that, okay, let me ask a question. So look.
Wait, can I interject for a sec? I think as you were describing this process for you, it felt to me like you were describing, how do I occupy the states and the things that need to be done in life, like the occupation of the things as you're going along, and the then discomfort level that you've been able to kind of moderate, and now challenges are less challenging, and so in the way you're occupying those pockets is easier and different. Is that what you were describing? Because that's what I was experiencing as you were talking.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I'm occupying challenges in a different way. That's one way to put it. They just feel more coherent. Challenges feel more coherent somehow. That's okay. This challenge belongs.
I like this. Challenging feels more. Challenges feel more coherent, and it feels that they belong. Yeah, I love the word belong.
Yeah. Because it's like a sense of invitation and welcoming what's coming rather than the push from it, which creates more of a challenge in the challenge, right? So that's almost like you're describing flow within the thing, you know, like a different flow with challenge.
Yeah. But still, can I may I ask another clarifying question? So, do you say that because you started talking about the challenges? So, do you say that the challenges is the necessary marker for the life and flow? It's just the difference how you live through challenges with feeling of coherency or the lack of it that marks for you whether you are living in flow or not.
I think challenges is totally a part of life and flow for any life. I think challenges is just by design there, or else you wouldn't be able to experience ecstasy of not having challenges, of being in peace or something like that. So, but it's just the relationship with the challenges that's different for me. And okay. It can be that you still, of course, do and go over the challenges and be hero, right? But this is the relationship is that I'm talking about is different. It's not like I'm a hero overcoming a challenge. It's like, in your words, it's like I'm dancing with a challenge respectfully. Yeah. And
dancing with challenges is actually one of the definition of creativity.
Okay.
Oh.
So, yeah, with challenges, with obstacles, but still, to make it clear, I totally agree that challenges are the part of life, and actually goes in hand with one of the questions from my list. Let's see if we get to that, but we're discussing it. But still, if you don't have challenges, can you live in flow?
Yeah. Oh, you're asking Yulia? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm asking Yulia. I just want to clarify for myself her vision of what life and flow is.
In my opinion, that you cannot live in flow without challenges.
Okay. Yeah, I just I wanted to have it clear for me, regarding your vision. Okay, it's interesting. Let's see, Polina. What is your vision?
I'm still with Yulia's description. My being is trying to tune into if what happens if we reframe challenge as an opportunity to stretch. Is it still a challenge? So it has like a different quality energetically to it. It still requires a stretch, but if it's not a challenge per se, it's instead an opportunity for a different perspective or a different set of like internal resources or a different action. Does it still feel like a challenge per se? There's no answer. I'm just sitting with this right now.
Yeah, but I guess it also depends on your relationship with the word itself.
Yes, that's exactly.
That was my question, Pauline. Why would you try to go around challenges or, curious.
Why would I want to reframe challenge?
Yeah.
Because challenge for me has a little bit of a negative connotation sometimes, not always, just sometimes. I think from conditioning, challenge means like you need to, it's something maybe negative or unpleasant or uncomfortable and you have to overcome it. And when I think about a challenge in terms of an opportunity, then that feels better. That process feels better, and the way I interact with the energy feels better in my system. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on what state I'm in, and sometimes challenge feels better, like, right? It's already kind of reflected differently, and sometimes challenge is like, let's have a different relationship with this thing that the challenge is describing. Yeah, does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it's very curious because in creative thinking, we actually tend to teach people to reframe the word problem into the word challenge. Meaning that, like in this context, it is challenge. The word challenge is seen as more positive.
And I would want to reframe it further by saying, what's the opportunity here?
Yeah, well, that is true, but that's the whole point. Like that, the challenge is like the bridge to the opportunity when you solve the challenge.
Right. I think the words are meant to inspire like a response of the nervous system to the thing in the field or the thing in us. And I think maybe it's for us each to figure out what is the thing that's going to make it the most flowy experience in rising up to the occasion for that thing. For me, I think right now I'm just generally in a space of like, what's the invitation here? What's the opportunity? And I'm not as much engaging with like that energetic thing that I pick up in the word challenge, because I've spent so many years with that kind of frequency around this that I no longer want to engage with it in that way. I want to engage with it in a more just inspiring kind of way, if that makes sense.
Okay, it does make sense. But so what is your description of light and flow at this moment for yourself?
Yeah, I think life and flow is it's kind of what Yulia was describing. For me, it's how do I occupy the different aspects and containers of life on a daily basis? Like, how am I meeting what's available in me and the field with a sense of acceptance and trust? Or am I having like a reaction to the things that are coming up because I'm judging them, or I'm judging myself, or I'm resisting? Like, am I in the space of what's here for me and how do I occupy this in the, kind of best, highest, or easiest or funnest? Like, the questions I ask myself now are different. Like, how do I have more fun with this is a question I never used to ask. And that helps me to have a sense of life being more in flow than the way I used to occupy these different spaces.
So let me try to rephrase it to understand it right. That, like, if you are able to live each experience from a space of acceptance and trust, that means that you are living this experience in flow. Do I understand it right?
It's more like I'm allowing life to be in the energy of flow, and I am occupying life differently. Yeah. It's funny because
differently from what?
Differently from the way I used to. And also,
what was it?
It was more from a perspective and energetic response of my nervous system, of like more resistance or judgment, right? Or like not wanting certain things, or being annoyed or upset that certain things are the way they are. Versus now, the question I'm asking as I'm going through these things is more like, okay, how do I do this thing differently? Or how do I create more flow within this life that is more in flow? How do I occupy these different containers and these different things, from a different question and stance and perspective that makes it more enjoyable, pleasant, or easier, just easier. But also, I have to say, we are having this conversation already several episodes later, and I've already arrived, I think, at like a different place when it comes to this whole life and flow in life than I was when we started considering it in the beginning. So there's a trajectory here that I can't even tune into what I used to define it as.
That's okay. I think that's the whole point of the project for us, like to let all our understanding of everything relating to flow evolve. And so that is why I'm listening. Just I'm curious about how you describe it at this moment for yourself.
It's like, how do I meet the aspects of life from one to the next to the next?
Yeah. So and I take it so that there are basically the two modes: the mode of like judging and fighting and resistance. So like if these aspects are not there, then that means that you are in flow.
Well, I mean, there's also the neutral state when you don't necessarily have any sense or feeling. You're kind of just on autopilot. And that is not necessarily, I feel like, life and flow. Autopilot, kind of sleeping through it, like when there isn't a consciousness and awareness piece to it. Maybe there's still flow because you're not like mentally engaging, but I don't know. I'm not sure if life is in flow if I'm on autopilot. There is a flow there still because things are still happening, but I don't know that I would describe that as life and flow. So maybe for me, life and flow means there is a consciousness and awareness piece.
I'm thinking I'm trying to weave everything together, looking at my questions, because I'm somehow I think my definition at the moment, it is somehow more resonant. I don't want to create comparisons. I feel like it's somehow resonant with what Paulina describes, although I use totally different words. It always comes to me the metaphor of surfing when I'm trying to describe it. So it's like surfing live, really, trying to tune in, again, using Paulina's words, but from the other episode, from her description of flow itself, just tuning in into the energies, like in the field around myself and the circumstances and within me, and like trying to feel at each moment. So where do these energies want to take me, as if they had agency, but like this is a totally different discussion. Of course, it's a big one. And so it's sort of like a mixture between letting go and just like trying to feel and tune in into what is the opportunity for me in each moment. Like, what does want to emerge? What does want to happen? What does everything want me to manifest at each moment? But at the same time, like how I could flow together with it, and to steer all this current in the direction that I feel I want to go.
So to me, your analogy with the what do you call it, surfing?
Also, the question about challenging, because it got me thinking, like, what's my relationship with challenges? So why did I start with challenges answering this question? Okay, surfing, it always, you always go up and down. So the wave inevitably goes down. And as to the challenges, I think that a big reason behind the state that I'm in right now, that my life is in flow and has been in flow, and it's a relatively new experience. I'll be 50 next year, and this year was just so different. There were lots of things that didn't work out. There were lots of times when I felt like, well, hit a bottom, let's say. There were actually also lots of times where physically I was so stretched, like during those wilderness expeditions, and also the survival tasks. And now I'm thinking that actually those were the moments, well, especially the physical stretching. It's like the stretching of your human capacities that brought one of the most beautiful moments of life in flow. It's as if, for me, I would say, like, remembering what being human is, or what capacities I was born with, and like what was it before the design. And it's also life and flow, because not only am I in flow with whatever, like a sense of purpose or something that you could probably ascribe to me, although it's also, of course, all interconnected, so it's also wants to flow through you, another story. But it's as if I'm also in sync with my biological design, with my like life on this planet design, lots of those things. And being and challenges is such a part. It's like life and death cycle that you can see now. The spring blossoms, they're there today, and then they're not there tomorrow. And when they live like, but then they go down, and then they become part of soil, and then instead of them, there is fruit and so also this is part of.
I love it. You just gave a different frame, and as I was tuning into what you were describing, the word challenge actually made perfect sense when it comes to like the physical reality, which you're so good with engaging with. Like that's like your, I feel like, sweet spot. And as you were describing that story, I was like, yeah, that's the physical ability in the elements of nature. I mean, that does feel like an actual challenge for the system, to do it and to embody it and like to figure things out and to like survive, like survive, and not in a bad way, but like, the survive, thrive in this physical challenge of the thing, and yeah, that totally makes sense. Thank you for bringing that in. That landed.
And it actually resonates with one of the questions that I had in my list, whether does life and flow means that everything comes to you easy and everything happens on its own, just like in synchronicity, just like you just let it go and everything will happen. As art of magic. And in this sense, I do resonate with this relationship with the challenges that you described, because that has also, have always been my feeling that, like, it's not just like, okay, I will let flow and Like I will let go with everything what happens and everything. Like I'm in flow when everything comes easy. Challenges are part of life, and this is how our growth, not only our growth, it's just like this is how life grows through exerting an effort. And it's exactly how Paulina described, like what space I occupy, like by living in each experience, like from this point of like I'm judging and like resisting to it, or like wanting to steer it to what I want, or just okay, what is it for me? Like how I can live it? Like what does it mean? Like what is the opportunity here?
Oh, but also as you were describing this, Ira, I just had this really cool image. First time ever, thanks to Yula, and the whole trees and stuff that she's bringing into the field. I just had this image of like a tree growing, and there's the life and flow for the tree, meaning like all the elements that are available for the tree to grow. But then the job of the tree is to have flow within, to be able to kind of interact with the elements that are available, like the sun, right, the water, in order to grow into whatever direction it can. So it's like this interaction between the life that is in flow naturally, right? Like the elements are available, the DNA is available, but then the tree has to, I think, find ways to interact with those elements in order to grow in whatever direction it can. And that would be like the flow it's finding within the life and flow. Does that make sense?
I think it does. There is a reason why we have a tree in our logo.
I know.
Interestingly, the trees does usually, of course, grow into the space that's available to maximize the sun and photosynthesis. But also, it's this shape. Even if the tree is forced, let's say, to temporarily change the shape, whether because of the light, because of the wind, or any other conditions, then it's from a different angle. It again starts to go straighten up. So it's this will, maybe like will of life. Of course, it's also all those things like sacred geometry, Fibonacci sequence, and all those ratios that are universal, be it for a tree, for a body, for the solar system. They all play out. So the tree is maximizing a lot of things, but it's
still maximizing around. Yeah, sorry, still maximizing around like the coding. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the will of life, because it's actually one of my next questions. So what about free will? Do we exercise our free will when we live in flow? I know that the free will is a big controversial topic, but just like briefly, what is your take on the topic?
I'm not at all exercising my free will at all.
No. So you're just like, what? You're being an agent of a greater forces? Or
I guess I'm being one of the agents.
Of course, one of
the co-creating agent, but I'm very try to be some of the best, I guess, decisions that I made or insights that I had always came when I, let's say, surrendered. Like, okay, so what is it? Yeah, I remember a cool episode like 3 weeks ago. I was in the forest, and then I was like, I come and I just say, okay, now I'm just wandering. I don't have a goal. I'm following whatever calls me. And what called me was those fern shoots, like those when they're young shoots, they look like aliens. They're covered with hair. They have a very interesting shape, and they lured me in. And I was starting to take pictures. Oh my god, aliens! And then I almost stumbled on the root of a tree. And when I did this, this is the place I needed to be in. And I sat down by the tree, and it felt like I was at home. And then I lied down, and I was lying there for 40 minutes or longer. And it was just total bliss. And then after that, I got answers to questions, I got some ideas. But it definitely, it pulled me in.
Wait, so what was coming up for me as you were describing that you don't have any, you're not exercising free will is, and then you said I just let go and I just surrender. To me, that is exercising your will. You allowing yourself to surrender, that is your will allowing yourself to surrender to the flow or the life and flow or the flow element, that whatever's available in the field. To me, that is exercising your will.
Maybe, yes.
Well, it certainly, at a certain point, it does require deliberate effort, at least to make a decision to surrender. But when you surrender, I think you surrender your free will to the process, to the state, to the greater force or whatever what you're surrendering to. So what is your take on free will, Polina, in the life and flow? Apart from, you said that it's exercising the free will to decide to surrender.
I think my choice to be aware and conscious of what is available in the field and then following that surrender mechanism and the trust of just going with it, even if my brain might have other opinions or the other things that show up right in the experience may have other opinions and maybe want to actually exert more will. That kind of the judge self, the controlling patterns, like those aspects of us, right? They always have their own opinions on things that are coming up, but holding space for them and yet still surrendering to the greater flow and the greater pull is, for me, an exercise of having, will, having just I'm making that decision. I'm doing the shift into whatever it is that I'm following. It's I feel like it's actually a very co-creative process. I could easily say, I'm not going to be in this flow. I'm not going to follow the pull. I'm not, I'm going to push through and do my own thing because I've decided this is what I want or this is what I need in the moment, instead of the surrender, which requires me to make a choice that I'm going to surrender to this experience and continue. Stay in it is also exercising my will. To me, that's still, I'm still part of that decision and that experience.
It's curious. I to a certain degree, I agree with both of you. It's curious that the word co-creation was pronounced more than once by both of you. And I do agree with this word as the description of my concept of life and flow. Like to me, it is also co-creation. But I also feel that any process of co-creation, it is like this flow, like in any creative process, any creativity is always the flow between the polarities. So it is the flow between the surrender and exercising my will. Because if I'm co-creating, so that means that I'm still creating something. And this creation is an exercise of my will. It is just, I'm doing it together with everything else that is participating with me in the process. And this everything else is life. But it has been since I began this journey of exploration of life and flow, I have been constantly oscillating on this topic between am I totally surrendering or no, I'm exercising my will and I want to achieve my goals. And I want to create, because I have to admit, I do have a complex of God. So I want to be able to create worlds and exercise my free will totally. Whether it is possible or not, okay, I agree, it's a big topic. Maybe we will discuss it one day.
Well, can I share something that was coming up as you're describing? And I'm
sure.
But what you're describing, it made me think, well, but even if I'm, let's say, exercising my will to allow myself to get into this flow state, right? Or into the flow of what life has available, I am choosing to add my energy to this flow, and my energy matters. So I am by default adding to the energetic flow of this thing, whereas I could have chosen to be like, no, I'm going to focus right now and do this thing that I want to do in this way, and keep being a lot more in the kind of the decision making aspect of it. So then my energy is not part of this flow that I could have exercised my will to be. And so that experience would in itself change then, right? And so that is the co-creation part, where your attention goes and how is where energy goes and how.
So, Pauline, something came up for me. So, yes, the focus, we can say that focus is really important, because one of few things, if not the only thing that we can control. So the focus or the attention goes, the energy flows. But at the same time, I'm asking myself, why am I focused now on this and not on that? Is it my will? Is it my determination? Is it my conscious doing? Or, of course, in the moment, we humans want to say, yes, that is my decision. That is what I want. That is my will. But then, for example, let's take millions of people nowadays whose focus is a total slave to technology, right? So, okay, do they have a will? Maybe. Who is behind their focus? I don't think it's them who's behind their focus. So a lot of things like that. So that's why I'm hesitating. I don't have an answer, but I'm leaning more towards that I can never say that this is my will, because too many things are shaping me at any moment.
Well, that is why I say that it is really the topic of free will. It's a big, complicated topic, and the science doesn't have a definite answer on it. And things beyond science either, because there are many contradictory views on this. And actually, what you say, it does also, it is related to the topic of consciousness and what is consciousness. And I think it's one of the questions also worth exploring in the next episodes. Regarding to what you said about like whether we manage our attention, whether we're able to manage our attention, like my stance is that yes, I agree that the majority of people, they don't exercise their free will, then they're just abducted by their phones and they're abducted by their automatic behaviors. But I do believe that this is something that can be trained. Whether it's leading us to the complete exercise of the free will. Yes, I agree that that's a question. But as I want to be God, I want to exercise it. But meanwhile, we need to come to closure. So, as a closing question, very quick one, taking into account everything what has been said. So now, how would you describe the difference between life and flow and life? Why do we make this difference?
Such a huge question.
Still?
I actually, from what Yulia was describing and her response to what I was saying, I think it's that agency piece. So like life and flow is the field bringing together what it can to be available to the person experiencing that field. And me having agency about how I go through that current of whatever is available. How am I perceiving it? How am I letting go or trying to control it? Like, so I still think there's an aspect of agency and free will, which it's required for having agency, even though I don't know what the degree of it is, right? Because it's constantly in flux. The whole thing is a mix of things coming together, and it's constantly in flux. And me operating from my, let's say, observer self allows me to occupy life in flow differently and me to access flow states within life and flow. Because there could be the flow state around the thing that's happening, but then there's also that larger flow, which is like the life and flow, and then also how I occupy it and how much agency do I give myself in the letting go of going into that process, right? And just flowing with it. I don't know. That's how it's coming together for me.
So do you say, where do we have more agency, in life and flow or in the state of flow?
State of flow.
Interesting.
And not even the state of flow. It's I have agency in the letting go into the process of flow, whether it's the state of flow or life and flow. I experience agency in my ability to shift from one state of being into another that allows for that flow aspect, and for me to be interacting with the field in a different way, and for me to experience the field in a different way. So I don't have an exact answer for your question because I actually don't have that answer yet today. But I'm just describing something that's not fully yet concrete for me.
But I think, like you did make the distinction, because I think it's one of the main ones that we mentioned also in our previous conversations. So like when we talk about the flow in life, we are referring just to specific moments of flow state that have in and out, whereas life and flow is really how we approach life on the bigger scale.
That's right. It's the transition. That's actually another distinction. I think how do we occupy the transition points from one flow state to another flow state within the bigger container of life being in flow, depending on like what it's able to bring together in the field for you, and then you being able to pattern recognize and also give up your control around it and like go with it. It's quite a dance of things.
Yeah. Yulia?
Well, I think I was not sure what I can say, and then I guess my distinction or the bottom line about life and flow versus flow in life is this relationship to challenges. It's the thing that I started with, and somehow imagining myself again doing really difficult things, physically, emotionally, mentally, but then knowing that it's worth it. And then at the same time, this is life and flow. And then flow in life, as it used to be, oftentimes I would engineer for myself this flow experiences by doing different things and using different hacks, like breathing a certain way, balancing on the board, doing this, doing that, following all the protocols for flow triggers and engineering that. But then, okay, what's beyond that limited in time flow experience? Beyond that, the challenges start to feel like shit. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. No, it makes sense. And I remember in one of the previous conversations that may or may not be on recording, this is the disclosure for our listeners, I believe you said that you like really the challenge, the difficult experience is one of the triggers that help you to enter into flow state. But yeah, I just wanted really us to mark this distinction between that flow state is just the state that has in and out, and life and flow is just really how we approach life, and everything what happens between this.
Pockets of bliss.
Exactly. Thank you. So thank you very much for this flow experience. I invite our listeners also to share their ideas.
Well, hold on. Before ending, what's your summary of your?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I did mention it while I was summarizing your
I
your
didn't know it
words.
was also your summary. Okay.
Yes, I do agree. So like the flow in life for me is just this like pockets of bliss, of these moments of flow state that have in and out.
Yeah.
Whereas life and flow is really how we approach life. This attitude and this dance between surrender and co-creation.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you.
So again, the invitation to our listeners, share with us your ideas. How do you see the difference between life and flow in life? What life in flow is for you? And share also whatever that comes up to you through your somatic experience while you have been dancing with us today. And we're waiting for you in the next episodes in our following explorations of this fascinating phenomenon of life in flow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. How was it for you? We believe that the more people experience group flow together, the better off we all are. More connected, more creative, more alive. So let's expand the field.
If this episode resonated with you, help us spread the word. Share it with a friend, leave a comment, or give us a rating. We love you.
Do subscribe so you'll know when the next experiment comes out. You can also connect with us on our Life and Flow group Substack. We'd love to hear from you. Let's keep flowing together.